Have you ever had that quiet, haunting question slip in when the world finally goes silent? The one that asks, is this all there is? Not in a dramatic way, not in a something is wrong with me way, but in that soft, aching way that shows up when you realize you've done the healing, you've done the self-improvement, you've tried to be grateful, you've tried to be positive, you tried to be spiritual, and yet something still feels like it's missing. You still don't feel like you're enough. You love deeply, you feel everything, and you see people before they even see themselves. And still you find yourself wondering, do I even belong in this world? Do I just love too deeply? Will anyone ever love me back with the same depth that I offer? Will anyone ever really see me? If that question lives inside of you, babe, this episode is for you. Because today we're talking about empaths, not the Instagram label, not the too sensitive stereotype, and not the badge of honor or the curse. We're talking about the empath as a nervous system trained, deeply intelligent, emotionally fluent human, and why so many empaths feel more disconnected, uncomfortable, and lost now than ever before. We're also talking about why this isn't a personal failure, it's a collective turning point because empaths are not broken, they're early. And when an empath integrates their shadow instead of trying to heal it away, they become fucking unstoppable. So, hey, everybody, if you haven't met me yet, welcome. My name is Dustin Wheeler, and I help deep feelers, visionaries, creators, and leaders who are done trying to fix themselves and are ready to remember who they really are and create a life that actually fits their depth. I don't teach self improvement. I don't teach hustle spirituality, and I don't teach healing as an identity. I teach conscious creation, nervous system truth, shadow integration, and embodied choice. Because, babe, I've lived in the loop, the healing loop, the self improvement loop, the fixing loop. The maybe one more modality will finally make me feel whole loop. And what I've learned, both personally and professionally, is this: most people don't need more healing, they need integration, especially empaths. So let's talk about how empaths were formed because empaths weren't born too sensitive. They were trained. They learned safety by scanning the room, reading tone shifts, anticipating needs, tracking emotional weather, soothing before things erupted, not because they were weak, but because their nervous systems were brilliant. And this type of knowing meant their survival. So, this is what Jung called the persona, the adaptive self that we form to belong, to survive, to stay connected. And for empaths, that persona became, I'll feel everything so no one else has to, even when it costs them themselves. So, where the empath got lost is in the shadow, because this is a part that nobody talks about. Every strength, when it's not integrated, creates a shadow. Empaths didn't lose their power, they hid it. They created what I call shadow kinks, unconscious survival contracts formed when a superpower gets wired to safety instead of choice. And let me say that clearly, a shadow kink is not something wrong with you. It's a superpower that got redirected into survival. Your nervous system did the best it could with what it had. So, what are the common shadow kinks that empaths develop? Well, there's 9 of them in total. Many empaths are unknowingly living inside patterns like the fixer, which says if I heal others, then I'm worthy. The love martyr. Love means sacrifice. The almost loved. If I stay attuned, they won't leave. The masked heart. My depth is too much. Or the storm chaser, where chaos feels like connection. Babe, these weren't flaws, these were instructions. And for a long time, they worked until they didn't. So, why do empaths feel so uncomfortable right now? Well, this is the part I want you to feel in your body. Empaths aren't struggling because they haven't healed enough. They're struggling because their old survival strategies no longer work in this frequency. They've done the therapy, they've learned the language, they've meditated, journaled, processed, forgiven, and still feel disconnected, underexpressed, quietly resentful, and powerless in a world built on surfaces and problem solving. That deep discomfort you feel, babe, that is this really my life moment? That sense of purposelessness, babe, that's not failure. That's your system asking for a new role. So let's talk about the shift that needs to happen. The shift from self-improvement to self-integration. You don't need to become less sensitive. You need to become integrated. Integration means you don't exile your shadow. You don't shame your patterns. You don't try to transcend your humanity. You fucking reclaim it. So let's talk about the superpowers of the integrated empath. An integrated empath no longer scans the room, they anchor it. They no longer absorb emotion, they discern it. They no longer fix others, they create environments that heal naturally. They no longer abandon themselves for love, they become magnetic to it. Their sensitivity becomes strategy, their intuition becomes leadership, and their depth becomes direction. And this is why empaths are the leaders of what comes next. Not louder leaders, not harder leaders, but regulated, embodied, present creators. And this is exactly why I created the spiritually kinky community for creators. Because shadow kinks, babe, don't dissolve through insight alone. They don't unwind just because you understand your past. And they definitely don't shift by trying harder to be better. Shadow kinks integrate through awareness, safety, language, and choice. And inside the spiritually kinky community, we don't just talk about shadow kinks, we decode and recode them. So if you want to know which of the 9 shadow kinks has been silently running your life and why certain patterns keep repeating no matter how much healing or self-improving you've done, inside the community, you'll uncover the core story your nervous system learned early on, the outdated instruction it's still operating from, the shadow kink contract that you unconsciously agreed to, the hidden shadow kink payoff that kept the pattern alive, the core fear underneath it all, the core need that was never fully met, how the shadow kink shows up in relationships, money, business, family, and success, the behaviors that run on autopilot, the emotional patterns that loop beneath the surface, what you secretly desire but may be afraid to name, the true choice underneath the pattern, and finally, the updated instructions that your unconscious has been waiting for. And you can take the Shadow Kink assessment inside our school community and finally understand why your system has been doing what it's been doing and how to move it forward without abandoning yourself. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming back online as who you already are. So if you felt like you don't belong, if you felt like you love deeper than the world knows what to do with, like you've been preparing for something without knowing what, babe, this is your invitation. And before we close, I want you to remember this. You are not broken. You are the creative force within, and you get to choose what you'd love to create. And whether you're here to be a little bit spiritual, or you're here to be a little bit kinky, or you're here like me to be a whole lot of both, lead with love, my friends. And in case nobody told you today, I see you, I feel you, and I love you, and you are not alone. Mm-hmm.